What's up, guys? This is Sam. We've got a lot of low-key Apple news to talk about today. They're getting into a new lawsuit. We know how many iPhone 10s will probably be available at launch. And finally, the Mac Mini isn't dead. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first up, let's talk about the iPhone 10. This phone looks incredible. It's got the huge 5.8-inch OLED display, the dual camera setup on the back, Face ID, so many fun things to test out. And a lot of people want to get their hands on this one. iPhone 8 sales have been hit or miss. Some people say it's selling like normal. Other sources say it's not really selling that well at all. But one thing is certain, a lot of people want to get their hands on the iPhone 10. And KGI Securities analyst Ming-Ching Kuo says that there's only going to be about 2 to 3 million units available on launch day, which is not a lot at all. This is something that we've heard time and time again. Before the iPhone 10 was even announced, that we were still calling it the iPhone 8 over the summer, and in June and July, we were saying the iPhone 10 is probably going to be really hard to get because Apple has faced so many production issues. And while those are finally ending, Apple is polishing out the process and making sure they're able to manufacture millions of these every year. It's still slowed down the production up until this point. Right now, KGI Securities says that only about 25 to 30 million iPhone 10s will be shipped in this fourth quarter. So getting one of these, even for the holiday season, is going to be really challenging because these are going to be tightly constrained until sometime into early, maybe even mid-2018 if the production issues persist. If you guys are looking to get your hands on an iPhone 10 on launch day, you're going to want to be at your computer or on your phone at 2:01 a.m. or 12:01 a.m. as soon as these pre-orders go live. It's going to be really challenging to get. I am terrified that I'm not going to get one and not be able to make videos about it, but hopefully Apple finds my order, they see it somehow, and I'll get one on November 3rd when the iPhone 10 is released. Moving on from the iPhone 10, Apple will not be holding any more special events this year. We saw WWDC and we saw the September event. That's all that they've done. They're not going to be doing anything else in October or November or December. According to a customer email, reached out to Apple's Craig Federighi and said, hey, are you guys going to be doing anything else? Craig said, no, not for this season. They're a little worn out from all the excitement from the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10, but I feel like we'll definitely be seeing something early next year in February, March, or April to talk about some new products and especially the Mac lineup that hasn't been touched in a decent amount of time. Now, in addition to that email to Craig Federighi, another customer reached out to Tim Cook and said, hey, what's going on with the Mac Mini? And Tim Cook actually replied, signed to Tim, and said the Mac Mini will be an important part of our future product lineup. It's actually funny to read these because I love how Apple executives never just say yes or no. It's never black and white. There's always something else that they say. So here's the email to Tim Cook. It says, hi Tim, I love the Mac Mini, but it's been over 3 years now without an update. Some low-key aggression there. Are we going to see anything in the pipeline anytime soon? And Tim Cook apparently replied, he said, I'm glad you love Mac Mini. We love it too. Our customers have found so many creative and interesting uses for Mac Mini. Well, it is not the time to share any details. We do plan for Mac Mini to be an important part of our product lineup going forward. I think it's really interesting that Apple's being so transparent with what they're working on. Of course, we're not getting any details or specs for these new devices, but earlier this year, Apple confirmed that an updated Mac Pro was coming that hasn't been touched in a very long time. Now we know that a new Mac Mini is coming, and even in the past under the Steve Jobs administration at Apple, I feel like we would never see this. It would just be an email goes out and we never hear anything back, unless it's a major issue that Apple has to address. But under Tim Cook, executives are replying to emails. They're telling us that things are coming. They're telling us that they're not having any more events this year and that new Mac Minis are coming. I think that's really cool. Moving on to this next bit of news, Apple is about to get involved with another lawsuit, but this time they are not the ones applying for the suit. It's a company by the name of Animoji, who initially released an app on the App Store back in 2014 that allowed you to send animated emojis. It looks pretty cool, but it didn't blow up, so I never heard of it until I heard about the new feature on the iPhone 10, also called Animoji. I thought that they had worked together. Apple probably purchased the rights, but it turned out that they never settled on anything. Apple reached out to them and said they wanted to buy the name Animoji, but they never agreed, and then Apple just went ahead and used the name anyway, which is obviously very problematic. The most interesting part of the story for me is how Apple goes about buying names, about pre-release features before they're public. For example, if Apple went to Animoji as Apple Inc. and said, we want to buy this, and then bought it, they would register the patent or the trademark, and some site would hear about it, and we would know about Animoji months ahead of the iPhone 10's unveiling. What Apple does is they create other subsidiaries that aren't really connected to them. For example, when they approached Animoji, they approached them as the Emoji Law Group, LLC. So they register these subsidiaries of themselves that are sort of connected or closely related, but that don't directly tie back to Apple Inc. So if the Emoji Law Group, LLC registers a trademark for Animoji, nobody's going to bat an eye because they're probably working on their own product. We would have no idea that the name Animoji purchased by the Emoji Law Group, LLC would be the name of a really big feature coming on Apple's next handset. I want to say that the Animoji app will have to win this because Apple approached them and they never settled, and Apple continued to use their own brand name anyway. But at the same time, Apple has really powerful lawyers and they know what they're doing, and Animoji is obviously a lot smaller than the largest and most powerful company in the entire world. So we'll see what happens. I want to know down below in the comment section what you guys think. Do you think it was right for Apple to use the name anyway? I was trying to think of another alternative for what they could have called the feature, but Animoji just flows and it sounds like an Apple-esque feature name, but they stole it. It's not actually theirs, and I can't wait to see what happens. Moving on to our last bit of news for today, iOS 11 has been installed on almost 55% of devices just over a month after its public release. This comes according to Mixpanel, they're an analytic tracking website, and I was curious, in comparison, the latest version of Android is Android Oreo. What percent of devices, or how many devices, is that firmware installed on? I looked it up. Android has this public information on their website, and I want you guys to guess a number in your head, 5, 10, 15%. I would probably say 10% before I knew the statistic. Turns out that Android Oreo is only installed on 0.2% of all Android devices on the market, which is an abysmal number and not impressive by any means. It's actually really sad. Let's be a little bit generous. Let's go back to last year's big Android update, Android 7.0 Nougat. That is only installed on 15.8% of all Android devices. iOS 11, 55% after a month. A year later, Android Nougat is only at 15.8%, and Android 7.1 is on 2%. That would be like the equivalent of iOS 11.1 when people begin updating to that. It's crazy. I can't believe that Android is so far behind, and they really need to step up their game because Apple's been killing the game for iOS updates since the iPhone 1, and Android still seems to lag behind in that department. All right, before ending the video, there's one last piece of news that I want to touch on that I forgot to mention. There's a new Apple store in Chicago. This is the one with the MacBook on top that just opened up yesterday or the day before. I think it looks incredible. I am so excited to see Apple's next generation of major flagship retail stores. I think they want you to call them Apple Town Squares instead of Apple stores now. Like, that's the official brand name. You call this the iPhone? Apple stores are now Apple Town Squares, which sounds super pretentious, and I hope that that never catches on. But as for right now, guys, that is all the Apple news that you should know. iPhone 10 coming up soon. iOS 11.1 is also on the horizon. So many exciting things happening. If you enjoyed this video, as always, feel free to drop a like down below, and it would help me out. And of course, hit subscribe for more videos on Apple in the future. I've been Sam. I hope all of you are doing great, and I will talk to you in the next one.